Alright, a lot of have been asking about the latch blocks, the best way to set up latching functions and alarming and that sort of thing. I'm going to try to do a quick demo on setting something like that up. I've got a station running here. I'm just going to go in here and make a folder just so we can play around with it a little bit. We'll call it latch. Everything that you need to latch is going to be located in your kit control palette. In your kit control palette, you'll see a Boolean latch. And just real quick, your in and your out is pretty self-explanatory. You just need to know that when your clock is true, when it goes from false to true, it latches your output to your input. So whatever state that's in, when this goes from false to true, that's what it latches at. So how do we set that up? Let's take a look at it. I'm going to create a Boolean writable point here. I'm going to call it alarm. I'll link my output to that. And then I'm going to create another one. And we're going to call it fail. And then we'll have one more that we will call reset. Alright. My fail is going to be my input. That's what we're looking at. To reset it, we have to toggle this clock pin. So if we were to go to our logic sheet and grab an OR block, so then when either of these conditions goes true, that it causes the clock pin to change from false to true. So in other words, I'm going to go ahead and set these values at a default. Okay, so right now they're both false, and I'm going to map that into my clock. When my fail input, maybe that's going to a pump status or whatever you define, when it changes from false to true, then this section of my OR block is going to go true, and it's going to cause my clock pin to toggle up to the true state, which of course is going to cause my output to match my input, which will send that to true. When this reset goes from false to true, the same is going to happen. If this is already true, then that means your fail input is still in a fault condition, and you will not be able to reset that alarm. However, if this is changed to false, this is still latched in, and it won't get unlatched until this goes to true. So let's test that. I'm going to set this to a fault state. As you can see, now my alarm point has gone to true. And if I try to reset this, this won't go to false as long as this is already true. Now if I switch this to false, notice this is still staying true. So what we have to do is toggle our reset. We have to get this pin toggled. So I'm going to go back to inactive, and then back to active, and that clears my alarm. Alright. Your reset point should always be in a false state until you go to use it. And I'll show you how to set that up in a graphic here momentarily. But typically, this is just a momentary execution. When you change this from false to true, it's only a momentary state. So now if I go back to active, it's going to toggle it to true. The fault clears. Even though my input says that my fail has gone to the false state, my alarm is latched in until the user comes here and resets it. So right there is what we want. Go ahead and reset all of these. I remember what priority I did it at. There we go. Now let's say we want to put this on a graphic so it makes more sense. So I want to create a new graphic. So I want to go to Views, New View, and I'm going to create this graphic called Latch. Okay. And let's make my canvas a little wider. Oops. A little wider. So let's go grab those points. I'm just going to throw these on here as a bound label. We'll go ahead and display the name. And let's make them white. I want it to pop off the screen. Make them large enough so you can see them. Bold them out. Alright. Now I want this alarm point. Let's change my background to black so that you can see that. So I want this alarm point to turn red when it goes to true. So to do that, I'll need to go into my foreground and animate it. Okay. I'll do a Boolean to simple. So I'm going to change that text color to red when it's true. As long as it's false, we'll keep it. Maybe I want to rename this to alarm status. Alright. Spread those out a little bit, give it some breathing room. So I can manually right click on this fail point here and toggle this to a fail state. And by doing so, let's say we want to keep it failed for a minute. It sends the alarm status to true as well. Now the reset, we want to do it a little different. Go back to my edit screen here. I just drug that point on the screen. Now I want you to go to the actions, and you can select, virtually any of these actions that you want. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Now what we want to do is reset that trigger or that clock input, which means that we need to get it to go to active state for a certain amount of time. Okay. We don't want to set it, because if we set it, then it won't be able to revert back to a default or a fallback. So we'll set it to active. We've already got our fallback set to false. This will make it true for a specified amount of time. Now if you look at the properties of that button, notice the widget event is action performed. That's what we want. And your action argument, if you click on that, and all I did was go this wide area, you can go to the browse button, whichever you prefer. And you can have it to where it prompts the user, so when they click the button, it's going to pop up that this information here that they'll have to fill out. But what I prefer to do is go to the custom, and let's just set this up for 5 seconds. If this is a local Jace, 5 seconds should be plenty of time. If you're doing this from a web supervisor, then you might want to give yourself just a little more time to allow for network traffic. But 5 seconds is good. You just say OK. You can also, I'm sorry, go back into that. You can also rename this. Notice that it followed the action that you chose. But we're just going to rename this to reset alarm. And you can resize it, center it, whatever you want to do. So we just gave them a button. Alright. So even though my fail has timed out, so now it's gone back to false, my alarm status is still true. Why? Well, go back to my wire sheet, because it's latched in, right? This is true, even though this is went to false, it's latched in. So if we want to unlatch it, then we need to reset it. And there you are. Did you see how that went from override to a false condition? It's because we had set that action argument up for 5 seconds. I'll show you one more time. Reset. True. It's counting down. And then it toggles back to false. It's going to go to whatever your fallback is, which is right here. And when we set that the first time, when I first set that up, by right-clicking, going to Action, Set, that sets that fallback. Notice when I change this to true, that fallback becomes true, which is not really what you want in this application, because now when I go to latch, I must not have hit it. Hang on a second. It's going to go from true to true, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? Just a quick refresher on how the fallback works. So let's set that back to false, and you should be good to go. All right. So one more demonstration. You have a failed input, causes the alarm status to go to true. If you try to reset it, it will not reset, because this is still in a failed condition. But once it goes back to a normal condition, then you are free to come and reset your alarm. That's how you create a latching alarm function.